I added random dino size to ARK. So Brontos are now the size of my toenail, and dodos are now fatter than your mother. But I also randomized their stats. So this car care is now at the bottom of the food chain. What a loser. This parasaur is secretly a megalodon. And this dimorphodon has the melee of a giga. He did 3,000 damage. And I have 100 days to try and not go insane and hopefully beat the boss. It was painful. This video is sponsored by the ARK animated series on Paramount+, but more on that later. On day 1, I spawned on a tropical island, but since dinosaurs can be 10 times the size, it was only fair that I was as well. I'm not fat, I'm just bulking. Everything was normal at first, but then I turned around. What? That fish was so ginormous that it made the ocean look like a hot tub. And to the left, there was a plus-sized degenerate in the distance. Okay, that's terrifying. But not everything in this world was humongous, and I found this cute little pteranodon. Anyways, before I could do that, I had to do the normal ARK stuff. So I played Mortal Kombat with a tree, lost a lot of blood doing so, stole Rockwell's child, and crafted a pickaxe, which I used to brutally decapitate Rockwell's wife, Flint, and I transformed her into a hatchet. Good times. I also decided to farm some fiber and make some clothes for our dashing protagonist, because that must be some sort of crime. I was scared to fight anything that would actually fight me back because this compy could randomly have the melee of a giga. But I did need some hide to better defend myself. So over on the beach, right past Harry Otter, I found some. This dodo that happened to be cosplaying as Mount Everest was kind of intimidating. That's a full-grown man right there. So I set my sights on this 3.4 times sized flightless bird. Come here, boy. So, ignoring the fact that I just broke my spear off inside his eye socket and he's still just chilling, I was kind of thirsty. So I went to grab some water when this happened. What? The leader of the Thieves Guild just ended my life. So I decided to reincarnate and get my stuff back. I grabbed a snack for later. You what? Anyways, I really wanted to see that dodo's stats. Ow. Ow, dude, stop. So after executing a degenerate and his degenerate co-worker, I'm so glad those things have low stats, I made some more spears, and it was time to try fighting the invincible dodo man once again. It was now day 2, and my KD was 0-2. But I wasn't ready to give up just yet. I knew that he was strong, and he probably had some sort of Bronto stats or something, but I wasn't prepared for what happened next. The entire 7-nation army wasn't enough to end this dodo man's career. Oh my lord! Am I fighting Thanos? That dodo had over 1,000 health, and I'm not exactly sure what type of stats it has, but if I had to guess, I'd say it was a Bronto. Wait, can something have Titanosaur stats? Oh no. Anyways, I eviscerated the oversized heathen that just stole my dodo hide, and my goal was to tame a pteranodon to get away from this beach and set up a base. And if you're wondering, dino size is completely random from 1 to 10 times scaling, with 33% of them being normies, 33% of them being NBA players, and 33% being a short king, like this dilo here. But the dino stats are fixed random, meaning if one dodo has Bronto stats, all dodos have Bronto stats. So after Egbert did a 360 no-scope on my base, I cooked up some hardcore drugs,
Someone cooked here.
some projectiles, and I was about to make some tranq arrows, but unfortunately, I'm only level 20. I'm inferior. Anyways, some sociopaths were distracted over there on Thanos himself. But after I inevitably perished, they made it to my base. Oh no. Yeah, I've deceased today, twice before breakfast. I don't know what those Raptor stats are, but they hit harder than Mike Tyson. Hey, how's it going, dude? I needed to level up, but I also needed to just survive in this place. So after meeting the world's shortest man, he's so small I can't even see him, and spectating as Bowser learns to climb a tree, I declared war on this Dilo fella for some hide. Who are you? This man wasn't even bloody. But I did level up when I beat up that tree. So I attended a college lecture on how to write bedtime stories, and I advanced to the Metal Age inside my brain.
knowledge.
So after I spent an entire 9 to 5 lacing some arrows with NyQuil, I located a birdman and launched 2 of them directly into his frontal lobe. Good night. He only had 125 weight and 200 stamina, which is even worse than normal for a pteranodon. But while he was sleeping like a baby, I shoved 15 raw Thanos down his esophagus, which should be enough to gaslight him into being my friend. And while I was waiting on him to digest his supper, I found his 2-foot-tall step-cousin. So I implanted some bedtime stories into his eyebrow, dropped an entire stack of meat down his trachea, and after a non-zero amount of time had passed, Terabyte and his fun-sized brother, named Byte, were successfully brainwashed. I still wasn't a high enough level for the saddle though, so I found a safe area on the beach, watched 2 birdmen perform a spin cycle, and at the beginning of day 3, this happened. Oh, I accidentally tamed a pego. What? And I'll be honest, I hate these guys.
Is there no way we can get rid of him?
Not without cause, Michael.
I have cause. It is because I hate him.
Normally, he'd be getting waterboarded right now, but this time was different. Does that say 1,700 health, 500 weight? You're coming with me, buddy. Tax collector was a changed man, and a few minutes later, I found this poor orphan dodo with nobody to take care of it. Where are your parents, young man? I forced tax collector to excommunicate this dodo from his meaningless existence. So out of the goodness of my heart, I humbly raised him as my own.
They ask you how you are.
This man was built different, with 3,000 health and 700 weight. And based off his damage from earlier, I think it's either a Rex or a Bronto. I'm not really sure. Anyways, I need to get moving. So I equipped some skins on Terabyte, Byte, and Tax Collector to make them look like anime girls. Ooh, I like how it keeps the color region that I had before. Purchased a brand new yacht. Turned the orphan into an anime girl named Bob. But in terms of pteranodon saddles, we have no pteranodon saddles. So I spent like 5 minutes trying to get Terabyte and his disabled bite-sized cousin to land on this raft. That is one big boy. And we set out, leaving Byte behind because he's physically incapable of landing on a raft. Bye, have a great time. Anyways, there was this giant stingray playing Ring Around the Rosie with some dimorphs, but I was more focused on the cave ahead. I wanted to investigate. This was a mistake. Oh! Okay, turn around. The caves contain the 11 artifacts that I need to fight the bosses and beat the game. Mama Brood and Papa Pithecus. But due to some, heathens, I need a better tame before I can actually go in there. So at this point, my goal was to furnish my yacht and advance to the Middle Age. And then I can start taming things and learning their stats. Hide was always kind of sketchy to farm since there could be a random dilo that one-shots me. But luckily, I knew these dudes were weak. There was a pteranodon that was built like a planet stuck inside the tree, and some ruins over in the forest, which could be a potential base location. But right now, I had one focus, getting away from the beach. And it was time to buy some furniture.
I do it again.
It was now day 4, and after loading Terabyte and Bob the Orphan onto my new cruise ship, I was headed towards Skull Island to farm some metal. You know, the one that looks like Batman. But when I arrived, I couldn't figure out how to get up there. This map was a bit different than it was back on ARK Survival Evolved, and this was actually the first time I've played it. And I usually would just fly, but obviously I need a saddle. So after admiring the giant statue of Harambe that is shining from the heavens, and getting jump scared by the basilisk from the Chamber of Secrets,
I'm a snake.
I decided to head across the water to the Redwood Cave, because I'm pretty sure there's some metal over there. Also, I didn't even realize it, but Bob weighs like 500 pounds now. What was that? Anyways, I arrived at my destination. And the pteranodons here are definitely not natty. The metal cave was at the top of this ramp, but I can't just walk right up in there with stone tools. So I assaulted some river rocks, turned on my air fryer, you're cooked, made a smithy, and crafted a metal pickaxe. As I climbed the ramp, I came across a blue supply drop. The ARK gods have gifted me 28 taters, and a shirt that was masterfully crafted out of the skin of insects. It almost fit. I'm definitely scared to go up here though, because any creature could secretly be a giga, or a titan I guess. But luckily, there were no heathens on this mountain. There were, however, crystals, defying the law of gravity.
Yes, science!
So I sliced up an entire stack of Metallica fans, and since Tax Collector has doubled my weight, I forced him to become my caddy. I then farmed some crystal, even more Metallica fans, and as day 4 came to an end, I started messing around with some of the player skins in this ARK the Animated Series skin pack. Guys, I figured out how to instantly lose 300 pounds. If you're curious about what this skin pack is that I've been using, it's from the ARK Animated Series TV show, and there's 109 total skins in the pack. And it also automatically unlocks all of the Dear Jane skins so you don't have to collect the Explorer notes. So if you want to transform your entire dinosaur family into a clan of anime girls,
I got family.
I put a link down in the description below to check out the skin pack on PS5, Xbox, and Steam. And if you want to check out the ARK Animated Series, well, I watched it last year and I would highly recommend. You can find Part 1 right now on Paramount Plus, with Part 2 set to spawn in later this year featuring Russell Crowe as Core the Prophet. I also dropped a link to the Part 2 trailer in the description below if you're interested. And thank you to ARK and the ARK Animated Series for sponsoring this video. So on day 5, after miraculously losing 300 pounds, becoming a female, and equipping the hidden blade from Assassin's Creed, me and my personal tax collector arrived back at the yacht. I had like 500 metal thanks to his sleeper build, but I still needed to level up 3 more times before I could make a PT saddle and find a base location. So after my pirate ship almost got raided by the scum of the earth, stay back, heathen, I spotted a plus-sized birdman, a fish from Ohio, and my mortal enemy on the beach. So I docked my yacht and built a crossbow with my bare hands. What are those bug things walking on my smithy? And I set my sights on a bird filled with terror. Come here, boy. Unfortunately, he ran to his mother. But that's not the unfortunate part. His mother should probably be featured on my 600-pound life. But after she went to the store to buy some milk, I tied up her child and began to eviscerate it while this compy stared into my soul. Hey there. You're making me a little uncomfortable. But then, this happened. Where did you come from? I ran, and once we reached the raft, I waterboarded the intruder. That whole series of unfortunate events, if you're a terror bird, gave me exactly 1 level. So I farmed some wood until I hit level 38, and now I just needed hide and kite before Terabyte Airlines could open and take flight. So I finished off day 5 by skinning my neighbors when I came across a level 150 gigantodon. Oh, I just shot him after the knock. This dude was almost 10 times the recommended BMI. He was fat. By the way, if you actually get what this meme is from, you're a legend. But I still needed a chitin for the saddle. So after crafting a spyglass to spectate my enemies from afar, day 6 began, and it was time to hunt. So I crafted some more death to rain upon society, accidentally threw Tax Collector inside a sleeping pteranodon's kidney, and after a bit of soul searching, I found some chitin. But then, this guy showed up. Ow, dude, calm down. My ankle was being relentlessly assaulted, terrorized, you could say, by a microscopic degenerate. I can't even see him. So I stole his ribcage, and that dude was small enough. But this ant right here, well, I'm assuming he's the smallest creature I've ever seen, but I can't even see him. Oh, there he is. Anyways, the flesh of my victims had been transformed into a saddle for Terabyte. It was a bit, smaller than expected. Bro is flexible. Anyways, I wanted to find a new location to set up a base and start taming creatures to take on the artifact caves. But I was still waiting on that massive pteranodon to tame. You gotta love when dinner cooks itself. I'm kind of scared of those things. I feel like they just have really high stats for some reason. But then I saw this. No way. This pteranodon was 8 times smaller, and I thought it would be a pretty cool comparison to see him versus the one that's 9 times bigger that's taming right now. So I tied him up and launched one of my best-selling bedtime stories into his pancreas, and after his sleep apnea was miraculously cured, I lodged some raw terror bird right in between his microscopic vocal cords. Bro, there's no way that that is riding that. At this point, the giant pteranodon was finally tamed, so I stole Terabyte's saddle to test him out. And anything that is this big, you actually have to ride them in first person. And you also have to add getting stuck on trees to your daily routine. But after locating a willing volunteer, I tested his strength, and he's not too bad. I even managed to exterminate this vermin, and I'm so glad that Troodons have horrible stats. Overall, I'm gonna have to give this experience a W. The only downside is, well, every time you dismount, you break your legs. So I decided to name him Mount Terra because he's built like a mountain. And at this point, I was just waiting on the little guy to tame before I could leave. And then Well, this happened. Okay. Bro, that dimorph just scared me so bad. And on day 7, Tiny Terry was tamed. And prepare your eyes. That just looks... I don't even know what to say about this. Tiny Terry was pretty strong for his size, but I kind of get stuck inside of his hitbox when I try to dismount. And I couldn't get him to actually land on the raft. Yeah, the sizes like on the extreme ends of the scale were a bit glitchy. So I left Mount Terra and Tiny Terry to fend for themselves until I can make a cryopod and come back. And with that, it was time to leave. I may have accidentally kidnapped my neighbor, and it was time to find a base location. I tried stopping by Batman's lair, but Batman himself wasn't too happy about that. Nice teeth, bro. And I didn't really do too much here. I just kind of mined some obsidian and bullied Terabyte for not being able to lift 70 pounds. Anyways, on the way to the jungle, I stopped by my hometown to reunite with a friend named Bite. And this is where I messed up. Bite was small, but he wasn't game-breaking small like Tiny Terry. And when I saw this giant parasaur that was getting destroyed by something microscopic, I assume, there he is. But I was so distracted on this tiny terror bird that I didn't even realize Bite was out of stamina. I was forced to land and forced to fight this raptor. I had no idea what Raptor's stats were like, and it looks like we're about to find out. I managed to lose that psychopath, but that man's stats are insane. I really needed that pteranodon saddle back, but the problem was Bite's body was so small that I couldn't find it anywhere. So I decided to just bite the bullet and start farming some more chitin. Almost got one shot by a buffoon. Okay, ow. But seeing that compy's damage made me kinda want to tame this fella. Are you actually cooking yourself again? The fact that he survived so long made me want to tame him even more, but compys only eat prime meat. And me turning off that forge, well, it set him free from that stun lock animation, and bro is now living on an entire different island. I didn't really think about this, but I just kidnapped that man and transported him across the Atlantic Ocean. Anyways, after gunning down a Ninja Turtle while he was attending his tree climbing class, I continued on my chitin escapade. I didn't find any. Everything was so much more difficult with these randomized stats. But on day 8, the compy boarded my raft again. This man either wants me to take him home, he wants to cook himself as my dinner, or he has Stockholm Syndrome. You know, all three are probable. But either way, I couldn't find any prime meat on the South Tropical Island, so I just set sail and I saw a sea monster. All I wanted, all I needed was a few bugs to loan me their skin. Is that too much to ask? But clearly, I needed some help. I needed a passive team. So I located El Chapo, and this one only wanted tinto berries. So I injected some directly into his taste buds, which gaslighted him into being my servant. I mean, friend. Unfortunately, El Chapo was on the verge of being flattened, but his stats were kind of mid, and the real test was gonna be the damage. Yeah, the damage is pretty bad. Attacking this trike was definitely not the smartest thing that I did today. I had no idea how strong they were going into this, but luckily it was a pretty even match, and we came out on top, barely. But we were still 47 chitin away from taking flight. So I docked at the tropical North Island, and the night of day 8 consisted of El Chapo slaying Bowser's entire extended family. Well, trying to. Get down here, bro. Bob the Orphan being reunited with his parents, failing to slay Bowser's entire extended family because it's full of absolute warriors. Why is everything so strong that I don't have? And getting revenge on a hoodlum. El Chapo is actually terrible, and his stamina makes me think this man discovered tobacco before humans. And I was getting pretty annoyed at this point, because I just wanted to fly on Terabyte. And to make matters even worse, a rap god showed up. Oh no. El Chapo fought well, but in the end, it didn't even matter, because he sucks. I didn't have to run faster than Mr. Raptor though. Just faster than El Chapo. I honestly have no idea why, but El Chapo didn't get brutally disintegrated back there, and I managed to make it to the raft, whistle follow, and loop around, which spared El Chapo's meaningless life. That went suspiciously well, but I still needed 15 chitin, and El Chapo wasn't gonna be much help. So I queued up some more supplies, and it looks like I'm gonna have to take care of this one myself. serious, bro? Well, that happened. So after realizing that Bowser was too tall to reach me, I stabbed him in the toenail repeatedly until he bled out. And now I finally had the keratin that I needed for the terabyte saddle. And with my newfound saddle, it was time to find a more permanent base. So I cooked up some meat while traversing the 7 seas, stopped for a moment to admire the view of Lava Island. That place is gonna be a lot less beautiful when I enter the lava cave. And as the sun rose on day 10, I docked my pirate ship, crafted a fob, and saddled up a terabyte. And on a side note, I don't know why I thought of this when I said terabyte, but this drive right here named Project, I've repurposed to only contain ARK Survival Evolved and ARK Survival Ascended. The only thing on the drive. And look how much space it takes up. Yeah, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Anyways, I continued exploring, seeing oversized versions of all my neighbors, and I found a yellow supply drop. Holy metal. But literally 1 second after I placed that supply drop into my pocket, a family of pickpockets took turns robbing me for everything I owned. And the level 145 decided to stay behind and try to steal my life as well. Luckily, Terabyte's knockback was pretty insane against the Pego, but each time he landed a hit, well, he landed a haymaker. This was not gonna work. So I had to drop everything that I just found, apart from the metal gate. Escaped death's cold embrace via Pego. And bro, these Ascended supply drops need to calm down. They just gave me a free metal behemoth gate, which only weighs 4 pounds, by the way. Anyways, I was looking for some empty land to build a house when I came across these ruins. I haven't played this map in a few years, but I knew exactly what this was and I was gonna check it out. So I farmed some meat for Terabyte, made a sleeping bag, put all my stuff inside Terabyte's memory card, and right next to El Chapo's parents going for a romantic swim is this water pool. It may not look like much, but if you swim down or just simply exist while gravity pulls your oversized torso to the ocean floor, you duck under this rock and boom, there's a cave. And this place is pretty cool on its own, but over in the back of the cave, well, just watch. Yeah, there's a whole world down there. Normally, skydiving without a parachute is only possible once in your life, but all the way at the bottom, there's an entire ocean and an entire underworld ecosystem, complete with your own personal underground sun, or whatever that light source thing is. I've actually built down here in PvP before, but anyway, I've wasted enough time, and we need to find that base location. I'm not gonna lie, I've actually never played PvE on this map before. And the only memories I have from it are from the PvP days, but I did have one location in mind. Brontos, Carnos, Rexes, Apaches. There were so many things that could have the OG Rex stats, and I really needed to figure out what it was so I could start a boss on. But that wasn't why I was here. This jungle is kind of mid. Well, that man is scary. I was here because I was actually planning on building at the center, which is the big floating island in the center, but with several species of oversized degenerate, and any one of them at any time having the potential to secretly be a giga. Yeah, I don't even feel comfortable being a cave dweller here. So after wasting half of day 11, I had to pick a ruined lot for my new home. Lot number 1 was very ruined, and inside the living room was a cave with an indoor pool and an underwater entrance if your aquatic in-laws ever want to come visit. Lot number 2, on the other hand, was a bit more exquisite. It wasn't complete with much furnishing, but what it lacked in size, it made up for in atmosphere. And lot number 3, however, had a beaver lake out front for all your cementing paste needs, the biggest Bronto I've ever seen, and the interior was small but secluded, flat, and open. It was kind of perfect, minus the heathens directly outside my front door. I really wanted to build here, but my curiosity got the better of me, and I flew a little bit too far into the cave entrance. Oh no! Well, there goes my kneecaps. Having flyer dismount in a vertical cave is diabolical. And an entire variety pack of rap enthusiasts did everything in their power to stop me from chasing my dreams. Somebody help! They ate good that day. But luckily I spawned a lot closer the second time. And once I made it to the staircase, well, there was another. Oh, he's the size of my toenail. We're good. We're not good. It's like being attacked by a toddler. Anyways, I managed to whistle Terabyte back to our food-loving protagonist, but I'm not gonna be able to get my stuff back, unfortunately. Maybe if I can make a grapple or something. So on day 12, I stole an entire beaver's life savings, and all the way back to my raft to grab some supplies, I found this Zafactinous fish man. He was either reverse drowning or breakdancing while also reverse drowning. So let us dance this night away. When I arrived at my aquatic abode, I made El Chapo bow at my presence. He hasn't been fed in 3 days.
Please, sir, I want some more.
Anyways, instead of wasting time feeding a peasant, I crafted a smithy, a couple parachutes to prevent that, a bed, and some bolas to tie up my mortal enemies, and I also unlocked some cryopods inside my brain, which I just need some polymer to make. I also made a mortar and pestle and a refining forge. And Terabyte's max wing press is kind of pathetic and it won't allow me to carry anything else. So I decided it was probably time to head back to my new penthouse. On day 13, I set up a file. Welcome to my humble abode. Wait, tax collector? I was carrying tax collector on my shoulder when I went into that cave earlier. And he actually is still alive, but bro is probably being spit roasted by Arthros right now. Anyways, I needed to build a base, but I also needed tames to help me grind the resources to build a base. So my 2 goals right now are to tame some humble farmers and tame something strong enough that is also small enough to take on the cave. And with random stats and random sizes, it could basically be anything. But before I could tame anything, I farmed some crystal to make a spyglass, made another foundation for the mortar and pestle, and headed back to my aquatic abode to force El Chapo here to farm narco berries against his will. We got about 600 raw narcotics from that, and I made him drop the rest of the berries because he hasn't earned the privilege of food yet.
Each time when I come here, I am abused.
But after an almost encumbered flight on Terabyte Airlines, El Chapo's unpaid labor allowed corporate to produce 100 buckets of hardcore bedtime stories. So I spent the night farming arrows to fire the bedtime stories. What in tarnation? Anyways, it was now day 14. And 100 bedtime stories have been ghostwritten. And the only way to see what stats a dinosaur has is to cure their insomnia. So after borrowing some chitin from these generous donors, I incapacitated this fine citizen, launched 2 of my bestsellers directly into his earhole, and his insomnia was miraculously cured. You're welcome. Unfortunately, the dude's stats were even worse than El Chapo, and that dude barely has the privilege of life as it is. So I decided to make the world a better place and remove him from existence. And with that burden out of the way, I had my sights set on another target. Step right up. This species of pedestrian was quite intriguing. His torpor was extremely high, and these levels of insomnia can only be found in the strongest specimens. Okay, this is insane. The parasaur had already tanked 20 of my lullabies at this point, and he was still wide awake. He definitely had to have the stats of something bigger, and I was pretty excited about that, but the excitement didn't last long, because then this happened. Did he stole my tranq arrows. This pego was tiny, and I had no idea where he went. And on top of that, even if I did find him, the man probably had over 2,000 health just like tax collector. This is so unfair. I spent like 5 minutes searching, but I couldn't find the culprit. I also decided to sucker punch Hannah Brontana and see if she was any good. She did like 10 damage. I guess there's my answer. It's kind of insane how one little pego can just grab 80 entire arrows out of my pocket in one swipe. Ever heard of swiper no swiping? But anyways, it took me an entire day to make another stack of those things. It was now day 15, and I really needed to pick up the pace if I wanted to beat both bosses by day 100. But to avoid another hit and run, I put an entire stack of mayho berries in my hotbar as bait for the pickpockets. And now all I needed for some more tranq darts was some meat that was spoiled and disgusting. I actually heard that they added the feature in Ascended to spoil meat using a throne, but not that kind of throne. The kind where you eat too much Taco Bell. I had most of the ingredients, except for raw metal. And I don't know about you guys, but my toilet is not made from raw iron that isn't even smelted. It's made from raw gold. Anyways, I sliced up some rocks, 70 at a time, because Terabyte is a weakling, crafted a prehistoric throne, and placed it in the bushes for a little privacy over here. Terabyte, are you really staring at me right now, man? So I placed 5 stacks of raw ground beef inside, and after resting on my throne, I realized I wasn't worthy yet. So I ate 5 entire medium rare steaks, some mayho berries, and sprinted in circles for like 20 seconds until I was extremely dehydrated. And now that my body's been through the Revolutionary War, it was time for glory. It worked perfectly, except I missed the bowl. So apparently a toilet has to be irrigated for this spoiled meat thing to work. And I was about to do that, but then, what is happening? Somehow, Tax Collector had teleported to the surface, which should be great, but now he's beefing with a microscopic miscreant. I tried to save the dude. I really did, and I even started spamming whistles like Flowrider, but the dude wouldn't help me fight back. And then he perished. I guess it's time to do some tax cuts. Anyways, I assumed that we should consider this meat to be disgusting regardless of the toilet being irrigated, but, you know, fair enough. This time, it worked, and I was feeling very refreshed. The meat was now, well, it was spoiled, and after I flushed the toilet, I was rewarded with an entire bag of fertilizer. A fine business transaction, if I do say so myself. So after queuing up 100 more narcotics, 100 more death potions, and lacing each and every one with NyQuil, day 16 began, and it was time to find my next victim. Mr. Stego here was invading my hometown and my personal space, but he was definitely too big to fit in any caves, so my first course of inspection would be Peppa Pig here. Oh, never mind, he's probably not that good. El Chapo's grandmother needs to lay off the cheeseburgers, but I knew for a fact that raptors and parasaurs were both pretty decent. But then, when I saw Hulk Hogan here, I got a different idea. He didn't hit very hard, so his weight might not be very good either, like normal Archies, but I didn't care about that. I wanted him for another reason. And since I don't know how many arrows it would take, it was time to build a trap. So I spent half of day 16 farming the Rock's entire fanbase. Almost became someone's lunch money. Terabyte help! I learned that the Rex damage was alright, but it's definitely worse than normal. So I don't think I'm even gonna try using these guys for the bosses. And after convincing him to jump in the pit of doom, I deforested planet Earth and spent the rest of day 16 repeating the process. On day 17, I had 2 traps. This wood gate one for the RG and a stone pitfall trap for pretty much anything without wings. And with that being said, I began my search for an RG. I didn't really find much though. There was a level 150, but he was way out of my league. That dude is way too big. Ew, what is that? Okay, I'm leaving. And I continued searching for my RG for like half of the day, and even when I did find one, they were usually beefing with the entire tri-state area. And with raptors being this strong, it was getting pretty annoying. So I decided to go for a change of scenery and look for an RG over in the center. Ooh, let's see if these dudes are any good. Well, that was just sad. This tiny Bronto wasn't much better. 7 damage. The compies are literally bigger than the Bronto, bro. This is so cursed. Anyways, over in the giant floating island in the center, there were RGs everywhere. So I set up my trap house. And then they all randomly just went on vacation in the middle of the workday or something, because the only one I could find was this level 135, which, I mean, that's pretty great, but bro is easily making it through those bars.
So I built this cage to keep him secure, so there's no possible, oh my god.
And to make matters worse, I've contracted frostbite and would soon contract death. So I made a sleeping bag, entered the afterlife, returned from the afterlife, crafted some hide armor, which did not cure my frostbite, and since I couldn't find any decent RGs, well, long story short, I found a level 95 female back over in the South Jungle Lake area. So I got his attention. Hey buddy, your fly's down, and he chased me right into my trap house, where he would either become mine or become a stack of raw meat. Everything was going pretty well, and this guy was taking a lot of tranq arrows, so I'm glad I made the trap, and that means his stats are probably pretty good. However, I wasn't prepared for what happened next. Terabyte was being assaulted by an arachnid. This giant spider dude is what I picture when I think of the wildlife in Australia. This man was hitting like a truck, but after kiting him off the cliff, I thought that would be the end of it. I thought wrong. He's back? No, Terabyte! The bane of my existence had deleted my only friend in this entire world. No offense, El Chapo. And despite me kiting him off of the cliff yet again, this man just kept coming back for more. Why is the pathfinding on this game literally perfect when they want to eat me? My tames just sit there and walk into the wall. It took almost 30 arrows to the head, which is insane for a flyer multiplier, but he was finally down. This RG had a 2-foot long tongue, so I had some pretty high expectations. The 3k health was kind of insane, but she only had 300 weight, which brings shame upon her family and brings an entire disappointment to the entire RG lineage. But anyways, I managed to get my pteranodon saddleback along with some raw meat, which I DoorDashed directly into her trachea. Dinner time. This RG would luckily allow me to still have a fire in Terabyte's absence, but she was gonna take a while to finish her supper. So in the meantime, I headed back to my humble abode, went AFK, and when I came back to my controller, not my keyboard, alright, don't get it twisted, I realized I should probably unlock a saddle, which made me also realize I needed more hide and I needed one chitin, really. So I headed back into the forest where I heard sounds of the Revolutionary War, and it turns out Lego my stego was in a rap battle. I was praying to the RNG gods that his stats were better, and for the sake of my RG, luckily they were. Thank you for your service. But the violence didn't end there, because this stego had a child. Ooh, if I made you an orphan, I could adopt you. But I wasn't the only one with this baby stego in my sights. Oh no, it's a degenerate. Luckily, the baby's mother came to the rescue. And just like that, round one began. The spider from Australia attempted a bite, but Spike Wazowski comes in with the haymaker, and the haymaker, the haymaker, the haymaker. This man is spamming haymakers. The spider from Australia has been defeated by a spiky fellow. And the haymaker, and the haymaker. Bro, he's already dead, calm down. My RG was safe, for now. And a few minutes later, she was domesticated. So I took Hulk Hogan's wife back to my residence. What in tarnation? And she doesn't actually have an oxygen stat, which means that these stats are from some type of water creature. I still needed that saddle though, and I was about 30 hide short. So I headed down my front porch. Oh no, almost perished. Please stay away from me. So I went to my back door, and I finally found someone to 1v1. I managed to get about 30 hide before his Argent tower swooped in, and it's time to leave. And on the way back to base, I was mugged by a troglodyte. No, please. Oh, well that guy sucks. I'm still gonna die though. Well, that was fun. The dude ran off somewhere after my murder, so I managed to get my stuff back. I also found this poor soul who had some pretty bad stats. Free hide though. Hi, sorry for the interruption, but we're getting super close to 200k, and I need your help. So if you're enjoying the video, and or if your mother is a Spino, please consider subscribing. And by the way, they just announced that Grounded 2 is dropping next month. And I was kind of thinking I might make a 100 days video on that, if it's cool with you guys. So let me know in the comments if you actually would watch it, because I'm not going to make it if you guys don't tell me you want it. And you can also just comment if you want to share your favorite recipe for banana bread or something. I don't know. Sorry, I was hungry. Anyways, day 19 was coming to an end. But before it did, I made that RG saddle and an entire set of shining armor for our nightly protagonist. Bro looks like he's playing Dungeons and Donuts. It was now day 20, and Hulk Hogan's wife is officially an anime girl. But I've already wasted 20 days just getting the most basic setup due to these random stats, and I really needed to get going. I tried to pick up this Doed, but for some reason my game had flyer carrying disabled. Why is that even an option? So after kidnapping a peasant and locking him in my basement, I realized that he was kind of bloody and probably wouldn't survive if I started reading bedtime stories. Him hitting me only did 7 damage, and Hawk Tua did like 150. So I decided to test a route on this oversized Rex, and he was so large that I managed to just stay near his kidney, and he couldn't even turn fast enough to hit me. RGs get my stamp of approval. And with that massive nuisance eliminated from this world, I could actually see my front lawn. And in my front lawn, there were some members of Metallica. Wait, I want to try something. No way. So apparently I can pick him up even though he's ginormous. I was a bit worried that I was gonna need a bigger trap, but that turned out to be the least of my worries. What? Where did he go? Bingo? So the Anky just vanished out of thin air. I'm not gonna question that, but regardless of their stats, I still needed one for metal. So I abducted his little brother, who was actually just a normal size, sent 5 lullabies into his cornea, and fed him some mayho berries during his slumber. His stats are pretty bad, including his torpor, which is why it only took 5 arrows. But I wasn't prepared for how fast his torpor was dropping. Oh, he's already about to wake up. This man was gonna need some more drugs. Luckily, I had about 8 just lying around inside my drink drug lab. So I poured 5 buckets of hardcore narcotics directly into his nostril. And while he was busy with that, I began to knock out this rock and roll connoisseur. This dude was absolutely tanking my sleep potions. We had a severe case of insomnia on our hands. But I was so focused on launching narcotics into his spleen that I completely forgot about the Anky. And about 30 arrows in, he woke up. Oh no! The Doedic was low health as well, and soon went into his shell. Things were not looking great, and I was all out of regular narcotics. So I took a trip back to my pirate ship, where I had an epic battle with an enemy who I couldn't even see, in more ways than one. But the reason I was here was to free El Chapo from his work contract. Nah, I'm just kidding. He's about to become my indentured servant.
Each time when I come here,
when we arrived at El Chapo's new permanent indentured residence, I witnessed Leonardo da Vinci doing jumping jacks on top of a oxygen molecule, but after El Chapo's shift was over and I paid him -$3, I queued up some more drugs in the lab and put one of my hostages to sleep. The other guy was gonna need some time to heal up before any more bedtime related activities, and the magical scorpion got disintegrated by a hawk, so I won't be taming any of those because they kinda suck, but this Anky was absolutely eating through my narcotics. And based off of the torpor and the stats of this Anky, I think that he's either a galley or a terror bird, which both require you to sit here and babysit their torpor. But 10 minutes and 15 narcotics later, well, he was tamed, but also the rap god has returned. Shady's back. I tried dropping this guy into the cage to tame with the other 2 degenerates, but he was too small to fit. So I quickly brought my Anky to safety while he was distracted on the dodo. And that's when I realized that there was an RG bullying El Chapo. Hey, only I can do that. I was panicking, but luckily I was able to get them both away from my family and fight them to the death. That was close. Anyways, I put the ARK animated series skin onto my Anky, and this is probably my favorite one so far. So I decided to name him Fred Flintstone. I'm pretty sure that the color scheme is like changing the skin to make it look cool like that, and I really want to see what the skins look like on dinos with the bright colored mutations, but we'll get to that later. Because right now, my goal was to tame something strong enough to beat the cave next to my base and get the first artifact. I didn't find much. Why? But on day 22, I found this level 140 parasaur. We have some unfinished business. I was about to cure his sleep apnea, but then I noticed that he has a child, so I eviscerated him instead. Orphan Perry here was gonna have a great childhood. I mean, everyone else loves it here, right guys? Help me! His stats were kind of insane, and I was excited to draft him into the military once he turned 18. But while I was waiting, I decided to test the combat skills of Juan the Iguanodon. They were subpar. I pub stomped another theory because it's just kind of funny how they get one shot. And I turned some vanilla arrows into something a bit stronger. Orphan Perry was bleeding out because his stats didn't match how fast he was growing up. Wow, that was like a metaphor. That was deep. So while he was finishing being homeschooled by El Chapo, I decided to find my next victim. Level 100? Yeah, that'll work. Woodchuck Norris was too big to fall into my trap, but that wasn't really necessary because... Wait, he's already down? This man had like 40 weight, and I didn't even know what these stats were, but I thought that it might actually be a dodo. That was until I realized how fast the torpor was dropping. Whoa, okay, that's not a dodo. So I put Rock and Roll back in his cage, and a whole lot of bedtime stories later. He was down. And I'm not lying when I say this. This guy tamed in 20 seconds, like actually. And his stats are kind of juiced, so that was really weird. But before I could even ponder on that, Orphan Perry was a full-grown man. Well, a half-grown man. And my new goal was to make saddles for my new recruits, test them out, and make some cryopods for the cave. But first I would need some hides. So I infiltrated this Bronto and committed an inside job on his kidney. And someone stole my hide. I kind of wanted to try out the giant compy as well, mainly because they deal 200 damage. But on the way back, Fred Flintstone was murdered in cold blood. Another RG, man? These RGs would not give up. And this one was a level 145 and probably had over 5,000 health because he took like 5 minutes to kill. Anyways, I dropped Mr. Compy into the trap and he proceeded to do some witchcraft to escape it.
You're a wizard, Harry.
But since compies don't attack unless they're in a pack, this should be relatively safe. Oh, aha. My bad. His torpor was like too high to actually knock him out. I've caught a big one. So after grabbing some hide and half of someone's leg from Hawk 2's inventory, what are you, Dexter? I still needed a bit more. Cue the music. On day 24, Rock'n'Roll and Orphan Perry were all saddled up, and the first to prove his worth, or end up like El Chapo, was Rock'n'Roll. It's like nearly impossible to find creatures that aren't built like Thanos in this world, but I managed to kill some rocks while simultaneously mining some hyenas, and his damage was, it's alright. But then, a battalion of rap enthusiasts have entered the chat. I thought that we could take them, since Rock'n'Roll has 6k health. But these dudes are insane. So I dismounted. Oh, which way am I even facing? And Hawk 2 saved the day. That was super close. Whoa, calm down there, buddy. You're not built for that. His weight was pretty great, though, and farming stone is his purpose anyways. So next up was his adopted brother, Orphan Perry, and this time I headed to the beach where there was one singular Carno. His name was Carnold. I thought that this would be easy, but I couldn't have been more wrong. The fight started strong, and Orphan Perry is the strongest tame that I've had yet. But despite me starting this fight with 3k health, things were not looking great. Carnold was absolutely busted, like way worse than the Raptors. This man just would not die. I even tried getting Hawk 2 to help and guide him towards the obituary, but these guys have like 8k health or something like that, and I should have healed up more before the fight, but I didn't. And just like that, Orphan Perry was reunited with his biological parents. How were you this tanky? Luckily, I managed to take him out, but Hawk 2 almost perished from that as well, and well, we know Carnos are good now. But even though Orphan Perry was living on in our hearts, his reincarnation was running for his life on the beach. I shall call you Orphan Perry Jr. And also, this. Oh, hello, buddy. Oh, what the heck? Dude, get off! That cat was evil. Even with these juiced parasaurs, though, there was no way that I'm making it out of one of those caves alive. So after demolishing a Cerato in 5 hits to heal up a bit, I needed to find a Raptor or a Carno. And over by the lake, there was a 150. He almost devoured my RG during the flight, but when I made it to the trap, what? Okay, am I stupid? Since when have raptors fit through doorways? Okay, so that didn't go as planned, but it was now day 25, which consisted of me slaying a Diplo, adopting his child, abandoning his child, repeating the process with this Kentro. This dude is terrible. And changing the doorways to walls on my trap house. Nobody leaves the trap house. I even made one of those fake wall door things. You always hide a key inside your trap. Scouting for raptors took a while, but eventually I found this level 130. It was on the smaller side, but don't let that fool you. Ow, dude, stop. It was kind of unfortunate, but I wasn't able to hit headshots with the way that this trap was set up, so I just launched 80 arrows into his tail, and that was an understatement. By the way, I actually launched more than 80 arrows, and this man was still awake, but he was no longer aggro. So I repaired my crossbow, moved the ramp to the side, and I finished him off with a couple more good night headshots. Yeah, we're just going to ignore the fact that that took 15 minutes. And he somehow has 16,000 torpor. This man was a professional insomniac. The health was nuts as well, 7k. But his melee was a bit questionable. Hopefully it goes up a little bit after the tame. I'm not really sure what this man's stats are from, and to be honest, I don't really care. I just wanted to integrate some prime meat into his digestive system, and while I was waiting, Vlad the Impaler wanted to cuddle. I cannot believe I just cuddled with that thing. On day 26, Eminem, the rap god, was tame. Orphan Perry Jr. was matured as well. So I made him a Gucci saddle, held El Chapo at gunpoint while he farmed some more narco berries, did the deed, and queued up some narcotics. Eminem's stats were insane, and I just realized how much weight the dude has. He could technically be like a Diplo that's actually able to attack, or maybe a Quetzal without flyer multiplier, so he takes forever to knock. I don't know. But he did 80 damage per hit, and he can attack super fast, so I think it's time that we attempted the cave. When I arrived over at the beach, there was a Dilo. It took 5 minutes to kill him. Bro, I might as well just do the boss fight with Dilos at this point. I couldn't bring Hawk 2 into the cave, because flyers aren't allowed in caves and the entrance is water. So I left her here and I taught Eminem how to go swimming, but as I entered the cave, I was a bit worried. Those spiders hit super hard and my concerns were pretty valid because yeah, they're stronger than M&M, and breeding a boss army of spiders actually sounds kind of cool, but I'm worried about the knockback. I don't know, I might tame one. But what I did next, well, it was kind of stupid. The spiders are slower than my grandma, so I figured I could just break their ankles. This cave specifically is one of the easier ones on the map, and mainly only spiders spawn here. Also, the oversized stuff simply cannot fit, so the cave spawns are lighter in general. Anyways, at the top of the stairs in the back is actually a different entrance. There's like 5 entrances to this cave, but where I needed to go was through the water. There is an air pocket in here to keep my lungs healthy, but once we duck under this wall, well, I think I can survive this. I haven't played this map in 3 years, and we're about to find out. That was close. And after making it through the ruins of the cave, I was back outside. Okay, clearly I don't remember the cave very well. So on day 27, after breathing underwater again, I don't know where the artifact is. The spiders were ARK survival evolving, but luckily titanoboas are super weak to balance it out. And after I used the Googles, I realized that the artifact of the immune is in this cave, but it was in the bottom of the water, and I needed some scuba gear to go deeper to where I could find it. So as day 27 came to an end, I sparked some powder in my drug lab, crafted a fabricator, and I realized I should probably set up a base for this. So on day 28, I needed some more resources for the walls, so I took rock out to roll. But when I went to farm some wood, well, this happened. Oh my, Arturo, run! I tried to run, and I thought maybe I was just bad at the game or something because I kept missing the mount option on my RG. But once we got cornered on the other side, can I mount? Hello? I got deleted. What was that, dude? Even after my resurrection, M&M wasn't mountable either without pulling up the wheel. I'm not really sure why that happened, but after some cannibal-related activities, everyone was safe for now. And it was time to set up that base. Okay, so I know that this is probably the most cliche ARK base humanly possible. Don't judge me. Anyways, I unlocked the ability to scuba inside my brain, made some polymer from the paste of a beaver's home, and crafted an entire scuba tank and some scuba flippers to cover my animated toes. I was also super close to making some cryopods, and I only needed oil for that. But first, I really wanted to take on that artifact cave. So after dodging some webs shot by oversized cretins, I arrived at the water and suited up. There was a blue cave drop with an Ascendant Sabertooth and an Ascendant Phiomia saddle, which are both absolutely terrible in this randomizer, and I didn't see any tunnels at first, so I sent M&M into the 4th dimension. I farmed some silica pearls while I was here, and that's where I spotted the tunnel. So on day 30, I swam out of the cave. I'm in a river, aren't I? And it took a little bit longer than I'm willing to admit, but I found the artifact. It was just sitting here, chilling in the water, by the way, perfectly hidden next to some seaweed. So with one artifact under my belt, I decided to check out what tributes that I would need for the boss fight. So I flew back to my spawn point on the tropical South Island, and I opened the blue obelisk. I needed a lot. But to my surprise, there were only 6 artifacts here. On ARK Survival Evolved, this map requires 11 artifacts. I was planning on fighting the alpha bosses, and I needed to work towards 25 Squidward tentacles to get there. That's by far the hardest tribute. So the next course of action was cryopods, so I could tame things further away from base to see their stats. I just needed to head to Antarctica to club some penguins for poly. But in the snow, well, it'd be cold. So I used all my pelt to make a fur hat to protect my ear holes, but it still wouldn't be enough. And I could always get an otter, but I had another idea. It's kind of weird, but scuba leggings have 200 hypothermal insulation. I just needed more poly. So on day 31, I paid a visit to Batman's lair. A very appropriate thunderstorm began. But I was here for the obsidian, which I mined while Batman's sink directly flowed through my forehead. And I borrowed some of Batman's crystal as well. And on the way back to my humble abode, I landed for stamina. Nope. But when I arrived, I sabered some teeth. And while I was waiting on the craft, I checked my drug lab. I had a lot of narcotics ready to be laced onto arrows and launched into the eye sockets of heathens, but I decided that it was time to stop using a crossbow like a barbarian, and I gathered my metal to craft a rifle, one with a very long neck. Wow, I don't look intimidating at all. Anyways, the polymer was ready, so I made some XXL scuba pants, swag, and I just needed some rifle bullets to make tranq darts, aka the final boss of bedtime stories. So I started smelting some metal in my living room, extracted some flint from Rockwell, and queued up some spark powder and gunpowder for the bullets while I was gone. El Chapo, you're the only one not in charge while I'm gone. It was a long flight, but on day 32, I arrived at my destination, Greenland. And on a side note, on the Earth, you know, real life, why is Greenland like all icy and stuff and Iceland is all green and stuff? I would like to speak to the manager. Anyways, the lake has a giant iceberg in the center, which is the main server for Club Penguin. It was kind of weird having penguins take forever to kill and sometimes fighting back, but after I crashed their penguin party, broke up all of their penguin families, and spilled all of their penguin oil, I wanted to take one home as a pet. So I located a 98 BMI flightless bird and sent like 10 arrows into his sinus cavity. These guys are pescatarians, meaning they only eat fish. So I hired a piranha to become lunch, placed it directly beneath his tongue, and named him Club Penguin. The blue color regions on Club Penguin made the animated skin look pretty cool. And the fact that my pet penguin is 3 times the size of my RG is a weird flex, but okay. But when I picked the dude up, and then threw him back down, I seem to be stuck. The look on this man's face says it all. I mean, I did just kind of exterminate his entire family, his entire hometown, his entire species, and then steal his entire oil supply like 30 seconds ago. But when I zoom into his penguin esophagus, there's another Birdman. Anyways, we made it back, and Mr. Club Penguin was gonna chill on my roof as a warning. Okay, that's not gonna work. He's gonna stand next to my base, menacingly. So I used all of the organic polymer from Club Penguin's relatives and the oil to craft 5 entire Pokeballs. It's kind of fitting considering my tames are animated. And I used the gunpowder to make some tranq darts. It's not much, but I'm out of charcoal. Anyways, on day 33, I updated my game to the new Unreal Engine. And if you haven't played the game in a while, go try it again because there is actually a major performance update now. Although I was already on max graphics, so it probably doesn't make much of a difference for me. But now that I had some cryopods, I headed back to the Redwoods to reunite with an old friend. Hello, Mount Terra. I managed to contort Mount Terra's spine and put him all the way down into a Pokeball that was 1/1000th his size. And Tiny Terry, well, that man's living spacious in there. And while I was here, I found another giant compy. And the last time the coward ran away by dying. But this time, I did have tranq darts. So I launched a firing squad of nighttime routines into his eye socket. And after 15 shots or so, he tried to run away. The audacity of this man. But in the end, he got some sleep. I also learned dire bears are trash. But I managed to find a racer for prime meat for our Compton resident. If you weren't aware, compies only eat prime meat for some unknown reason. But after a few slices of raw racer, he was gaslit into being my buddy. This doesn't look weird at all. Straight Outta Compy was a huge addition to my team, and he can sit on my shoulder somehow. And his stats, well, they could be better, but for a compy, I mean, that's kind of insane. My next goal was to tame some more species of various ladies and gentlemen, and figure out what has Rex-like stats to use for a boss fight. But first, I decided to cryo Eminem and Orphan Perry, summon a Mountanodon, that man is very large, and give Tiny Terry the privilege of living inside my house. I wanted to go ahead and knock out another artifact cave, but that was kind of just an excuse because I really wanted to explore Lava Island. And when I arrived, I immediately noticed a difference from ARK Survival Evolved. There's actual greenery here, unlike ARK Survival Evolved where everything is all burnt and crispy. But we still have the classic lava pools and the trees that give charcoal if you decide to become a lumberjack. Someone lost their jaw. Oh, there it is. Anyways, I spent a while just exploring the island. Why, hello, sir. And the local degenerates were enjoying a hot tub experience. It took me a while to find the cave entrance because everything looks a lot different on ASA. But on day 35, I arrived at the Pearl Cave. Yeah, if you thought I was going to the actual lava cave, trust me, that's the very last one we're doing. But after making my arrival, I put a Hawktua in a pod, and I entered on an Eminem. This cave is probably the most popular PvP base location on the map. Well, probably not on ASA because that entrance is way bigger. But as a cave itself, it's actually not too difficult. There were some gigantopithecus near the entrance, but luckily these guys didn't hit too hard. But they still try to spit on me and disintegrate my pants. They foiled my disguise. The Pearl Cave is basically a one-way long tunnel, with two pathways being the land bridge at the top or the water on the bottom, which we will not be going in. Luckily, the Titanoboas and the Arthros are both pretty bad. Scorpions are kind of mid, but they are tanky. But over in the back, I met my mortal enemy. Oh, not again. I tried to fight off Spider-Man and his microscopic mother-in-law, but they were kind of messing me up. The only saving grace here is that spiders are super slow, so I ran past just like I did earlier, but I wasn't sure if running was the right move at the end here. There's some big boys over yonder. So there I was, buck naked on a rap god with someone's rib cage inside the pocket of my broken pants. And there were two spiders that just immigrated from Australia yesterday staring into my soul. I was ready. So I got their attention. Hello, mate. Ran around Rockwell, broke all 16 of their spider ankles, and secured the artifact of the hunter. Get wrecked. There were pearls everywhere in this cave, hence the name Pearl Cave. And I might come back if needed, but since this is PvE, I'm actually on single player. I don't think I need turrets or anything, so I'll probably be alright. Anyways, after dodging the web-like advances of some recent Australian immigrants, I made it out of there in one very large piece. I was still exploring the lava island when I saw this monstrosity. Whoa, why is he flying? Okay, so I'm about to do something stupid here, but let's just think critically for 1 second. Use our David noggins. If everything is randomized, and that's normally a giga, then in theory, there's no way that's actually a giga. So I decided to attack, but...
What?
Excuse me. I'm not gonna question that, but not much else happened on day 35. But I did visit the volcano, discovered that dire wolves are kinda terrible, and scouted the entrance to the hard lava cave. I'm scared of you. On day 36, after attending a coelacanth synchronized swimming tournament, I had to say that like 8 times to get it right. I think I just invented a tongue twister. Coelacanth synchronized swimming tournament. I returned to El Chapo's indentured residence, and after repairing my anime armor, I have 2 out of the 6 artifacts needed to take on Mama Brood and Papa Pithecus. Tiny Terry, where is your anime suit, young man? Ever since the Unreal Engine update, there's like a holographic rock in my front yard for some reason. But I really needed some water tames for the water tributes, and I also needed a boss arm. So I decided to take Tiny Terry flying out my window and explore the road less traveled. I was kind of avoiding traveling too far away from base before, because Hawk Tua is so slow that she might as well be flying backwards. But the first course of action was to scout the redwoods. It took way longer than it should have to find this guy, but over in the very back, appropriately underneath the statue of Harambe's grandfather, was Harambe himself. I think Tiny Terry was too tiny or something because the dude wouldn't fight me back. But after picking on someone my own size, I learned today that Megatheriums are trash. I also tried to passive tame the dude, but then Carnold showed up. Ow. I got yeeted off a cliff and forced to go bungee jumping without the bungee, but I had a parachute. So when I made it back up on Hawk Tua, I eviscerated Harambe and adopted Harambe Jr. Apparently, this level 55 ape has 4k health and almost 300 damage. And I don't want to jump to conclusions here, but if the damage was good, we might be recreating the Planet of the Apes. So I spent the rest of day 36 exploring the back redwood cave, testing the strength of Bambi's uncle, weakling. And as the sun rose over the center, I came across the waterfall. On day 37, I found a family of Mammotheans, so I declared war on them. They were actually really strong, like impressively strong. But the thing is, I just don't really want to use mammoths. They're super slow and they're just clunky all around, and we have Harambe on the back burner. So I'm gonna keep that in mind, but for now, I kept my sights set on the cliffside underworld cave thing. The cave is pretty cool, but there's nothing like unique here until you go all the way to the very back where you'll find the Ice Palace. The artifact of the cunning is inside, and this one right here is the hardest artifact to get in the entire game. It's very confusing too. So basically what you do is you walk up and you grab it. Wow. And with the artifact of the cunning secured, I had 3 out of the 6 artifacts needed for the boss. But the last 3 artifacts are gonna be much more difficult. They included the 2 snow caves and the hard lava cave. But anyways, I saw a rhino, and I would 100% make a rhino army if they were good. So when I saw this man, I had to test his damage. I was saying, I had to test his damage. Okay, you guys need to be reincarnated. I decided to leave 1 juvenile rhino alive and adopt him into my family. I named him One Punch Man because 1 punch is all it would take to end his life. Bro, this is just sad. As I made my way north and back to the surface, it was getting colder. But I had 1 creature here that absolutely needed to be tested. The Tyrannosaurus, aka Katy Perry. As long as she isn't completely terrible, I did need one for the roar buff for my roster. But after witnessing 2 Utis die right in front of my eyes, I was biting frost. At this point, I just wanted to go home and test out Harambe. But since I was already in Shrek's hometown, I figured, why not try my luck? Both of the gators were pretty useless, and I didn't find much luck anywhere else. Snoop Frog, Barry the Berry, and the Spino from Wish were all a waste of space. But when I went to attack this Capro, well, I accidentally hit a Dimorphodon. Now, as you may know, Dimorphodons hit the player directly, not Hawk 2. And first of all, I didn't realize I hit him, but second of all, well, they have the whole mafia. I wasn't paying too much attention to their damage, and since I have flak on, it didn't look like they were hitting hard, but I'm gonna go ahead and reveal you guys this secret. Dimorphs have Carcharodontosaurus stats. So when I swooped in thinking I'd 2-shot these guys, well, my armor melted off my body, and I perished.
You done messed up, Aaron!
The only flyer that I have left at base was Mount Terra. So I made him a 2000 XL saddle from the Big and Tall store, realized that he was too tall to leave the doorway of a cave, made a cryopod, teleported him into the backyard, and began the rescue mission. More than likely, the Dimorph won't attack the RG after they assassinate the rider, but it's definitely possible, and I was a bit worried. So after landing to refill my stamina inside Terry's planet-sized lungs, we arrived. Oh! I managed to whistle Hawk 2 out of there, but that was super close. The Dimorphs were pretty chill, for now, and that leech was kind of freaking me out. Diseased leech. Bro, he would have given me the fever. Getting my stuff back, on the other hand, was a bit sketchy, because there was nowhere good to land. But after executing this Sarco, the coast was clear. You got a little something on your talon. I genuinely have no idea how I'm supposed to tame one of the Dimorpha gigas. Like, they aren't getting trapped. I mean, they can be bullied, but it's gonna take so many shots that they're gonna break out like 20 times. I'll figure something out. Anyways, back at base, it was so hot outside that I almost evaporated. But Harambe Jr. was finally on his way to becoming a man. So while I was waiting, I grabbed a rock and roll junkie, cleared Miss Hawk 2's inventory to be used as a smithy, and I set out to finally make some gateways for my kid. We need a little privacy around here. Day 39 was coming to an end, and Harambe was still pretending to be too young to work. But with a behemoth gate in the back and a stone wall out front, I think we should be safe. Surely nothing dangerous will fly through the massive hole inside my wall here. I was still waiting on Harambe to tend, but I went ahead and made some scuba gear just to prepare for later, and I saw a level 150 female raptor outside. M&M is a male. You see where I'm going with this? So I accidentally picked up her little brother, started flogging him for getting in the way, and once I got a good look, I grabbed M&M's arranged marriage wife and locked her in the trap house in my basement. And while I was still waiting on Harambe to finish becoming a man, I refilled my supply of heavy metal. And when I arrived back at my military compound, it was Harambe's 18th birthday. So to celebrate, we went out for drinks. I mean war. He wasn't very happy about entering the workforce. But to put this monkey man to the test, I hired 2 low-level raptors to assassinate him, and this would be a pretty good comparison to Eminem. The knockback on Gigantopithecus is super nice, but since he has a more delayed attack compared to Eminem, the DPS just isn't as high. So for now, it looks like that arranged marriage will be arranged. So I queued up some more advanced sleeping pills, and on day 41, it was time to gaslight this female rapper into marrying Eminem. Wait, can I shoot you from outside the wall? Oh? So our highly realistic gameplay, these raptors take like 150 tranks if I don't go for the head, but 50 if I do. But when you see these shots doing 19 damage, that means they didn't register as a headshot. And I don't know about you, but it isn't the nostril's part of my head. Anyways, I started shooting nightly routines into Eminem's future wife's sinus cavity, and it was about a 50-50 if it registered as a headshot or not. But eventually I realized I have to shoot it into like the top of his non-existent hairline, and after using all 30 of my tranq darts and a ton more tranq arrows, she was down. So I door dashed some prime meat, slayed the door dasher himself instead, opened the secret door to my trap house, and fed this rap enthusiast. I just did some base stuff while I was waiting on her to tame, but about 10 minutes later, wait, what's Eminem's wife's name? Kim was tamed, and it was time to initiate the arranged marriage ceremony. There's a bit of a height gap here. Kim's stats were actually amazing. There was almost 10,000 health and 380 melee during rap battles. And just like that, the ceremony was complete. You may mate with the bride. I wasn't fully committed to the rap life yet for boss battles, but I was gonna keep getting some backup eggs just in case. Anyways, I needed some water exploration going, like yesterday, but I didn't have anyone capable of traveling to ARK Aquatica yet. I wasn't on my way to the ocean yet though. I was on my way to the swamp. My game crashed 4 times here, by the way. Anyways, the Capro actually wasn't too bad. Probably like 1,000 health on this level 25, but I was actually here for someone else. Hello, Robert. Robert was only level 25, and bigger than I would like, but it was a good opportunity to see the NaturalCauzes stats. They were a bit disappointing. He would probably be decent at a higher level, but I just needed him until I tamed something better anyways. So after having an intimate moment with a leech, and realizing I forgot the narcotics, a few bites of raw capro later, Robert No Drowny Jr. has entered the chat. His teeth were on fleek. But before I could join the water polo team, I needed some more tranq arrows for the crossbow, because you can't use long necks underwater. So I extorted some flint from a pebble, and when I returned, I realized I left the raptors on mating. And the temperature here was actually perfect for incubation, somehow. The melee on DaBaby the raptor was way higher than 440, while the health was way lower, with only 1,500. Something ain't adding up. These stats did not match either one of its parents, so one of 2 things is happening here. Either Kim is cheating on Eminem with a micro raptor named Steve, or these are actual raptor stats instead of the randomized creature, whatever it was before. And once I hatched the other 2 eggs, I can confirm they all have 1,500 health. So I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that babies are not randomized. Why is there a light source emitting from Club Penguin's toenail? This was super unfortunate because these raptors kinda suck. But if I were to use bred Rexes or something for their stats, that would be kind of cheating and defeat the whole point of having randomized stats. So I have to tame 20 different creatures to do the boss fight, and I won't have imprint. I'll probably use multiple different ones in that case, and one of them will 100% be a dimorphodon. But anyways, I was now in the ocean, and the sole purpose was to tame a creature capable of stealing 25 of Squidward's tentacles. And by the way, I don't need a scuba tank here because Robert No Drowny Jr. lets me breathe air out of his... I was gonna say air sac, but that sounds disgusting. Let's just say I'm alive, but the dude is awful because whatever it is that he is randomized with, it runs out of stamina in 10 seconds. And the oxygen is pretty bad too. So I was heading towards the underwater bubble to try and kite a megalodon, but, well... yeah, that was embarrassing. So on day 43, I made some flippers and flew Tiny Terry through my bedroom window and started heading south. But then my game crashed. And when I loaded back in, my last save was when I was breeding raptors. Really? The new update has been causing me to crash a lot, and I'm sure they'll fix it, but I don't know why it's doing this right now. But I won't make you rewatch all this. we is at the cave. There's nothing important inside this underwater bubble, but it is actually a really cool base location if you've never seen it before. But anyways, Robert is actually abysmal with the lung capacity of a dead person, and having to regain stamina every 3.8 seconds is something that I would prefer not to do. So I located this anglerfish, incapacitated him, and I waited about 20 minutes for him to eat his unconscious supper. But on day 44, Senor Lightbulb was tamed, and his weight was questionable. But after some deep sea exploration, I came back towards the tropical beach, where I witnessed a sharknado. Y'all brought the whole mafia, huh? I wanted to tame either a bassie, like this fella, or a zophactinus, like this fella. But first, I needed some prime meat. For some reason, I was not able to find that bassie again. What are you looking at? And it took way longer than it should have, but on day 45, over by the bridge, I found a 140 bassie. Yeah, baby! But there was also a degenerate. Will you go away, bro? I kind of sat here kiting this heathen and his unrealistically large mother. I just accidentally invented another yo mama joke while waiting on the dude to get hungry again. I am so glad that man is stuck in the floor. For some reason, bassies take a super long time after the first feed, and I won't make you watch all that because it took an entire day. 30 minutes later, Whalebert was tamed. That was enough swimming for today. I hate the ocean so much. But Whalebert had some insane stats. Almost 20k health and 500 melee. Now I'm kind of mad that I can't breathe. The 25 Squidward tentacles shouldn't be an issue with this man. Get wrecked. And over by the blue obelisk, I was checking everything else, which should be easy enough, but it's also gonna be a grind. I haven't even seen a Spino yet, and the 3 artifacts remaining were in the hard lava cave and the 2 snow caves. So after making it back to my cave side penthouse and farming some wood, well, trying to, half of these trees were like fake trees because they weren't actually respawning. It was a glitch with the new update. But I crafted some fur armor to keep my toes warm and set out to hypothermia land to find the easier snow cave. But on day 47, my game crashed. And that was the moment I decided to actually pay attention to what was going on. I had the artifact of the hunter, the immune, and the artifact of the cunning. But if you look back at that list from day 46, I need the brute, devourer, massive pack, hunter, and clever. There's no immune in that list. And according to the wiki, there are still 11 artifacts on this map, but not all of them are needed. So the artifact of the immune from the jungle cave is completely useless. And the clever and the devourer, well, they're both in the hard ice cave, the same one. So I have the hunter from the lava oasis, the clever from the cliffside cavern, and I still need the massive from the hard lava cave and the brute from the underwater trench. That one's in Squidward's house. So I grabbed some grapples and there's been a change of plans. I guess we're doing the hard ice cave. When I arrived in hypothermia land, I summoned Eminem's arranged marriage wife. We headed down the ramp into the water. Wait, into the water? And I completely forgot to bring scuba. I have to fly all the way back. 5 minutes later, we headed down the ramp again. Into the water again, and I almost disintegrated on the spot. It was way too cold in here, despite fur armor and with the scuba leggings. So I headed back out, decimated some pedestrians, and turned their skin into a sleeping bag, just in case I needed to reincarnate. Anyways, it was a warmer part of the day now, so I didn't even need the sleeping bag anymore. But after swimming through a tunnel with popsicles hanging from the ceiling, and then randomly getting flashbanged, I arrived at the Ice Palace. Why, hello, sir. We had quite the showdown ahead of us, so I summoned Kim's husband, an orphan named Perry, regrouped, and declared war. Thanks for the orphan. There weren't many creatures in here at all, and I was kind of surprised considering how insane the snow cave is on the island. But after making my way up this ramp and spying on a blue yeti from above, I made my way down and I came across the pit of doom. This is why you need grapples for this cave, and I was about to jump in when my game crashed. And when I loaded back in, my last save was before I made the sleeping bag. Really? This time, the icy gladiator arena had more stuff spawning. But eventually, I made it back to the jump, went skydiving, but with a parachute this time, and I realized I was about to perish. via the biting of frost. So I decided to claim my life insurance and said goodbye. It was now day 49, and the rest of the cave was empty. Too empty. I passed through some tunnels, past the water pool, and into the artifact chamber. At least what I thought was supposed to be the artifact chamber. The artifact wasn't here, and I don't know if it's exactly supposed to be. I mean, it looks like it should be. So I pulled out the trusty wiki, and it actually does have a cave map. And where I'm standing right at this very moment is the exact location for the artifact of the clever. So I just kind of waited around for like half of day 49, and by day 50, I was getting kind of concerned. The artifact of the clever clearly was not going to spawn, because they usually are on a 5-minute cycle. I guess I'm not clever enough, I'm sorry. A few moments later, oh, I wonder how that got there. Yeah, I forced it to spawn with commands. Anyways, I had to use grapples to get back out of the pit of doom, but there is one more artifact in this cave, and this one is much easier to access. Basically, you go the opposite direction in the underwater section, prepare yourself for a second flashbang of the day, and the tunnel was a little bit longer on this side, so a raptor named Eminem was waterboarded to the brink of death. That was way too close. Outside the water, the cavern opens up to this ruined underground ice city type thing. I don't know why anyone would live here. It's kind of like in games like in Elden Ring or like Resident Evil 4 or whatever, where there's this random merchant that's just out in the middle of a literal apocalypse with things that want to kill you and you're his only customer. But anyways, inside the cavern, I slayed a family of teeth that just so happened to be sabers, emancipated a spider from Australia from the tyranny of his own menacing existence, and had a not very epic battle with a yeti that lasted way too long. And at this point in the cave, I came across a staircase which led up to these ruins with the yellow cave drop. These things can be pretty OP on ARK Ascended, but what I found inside, no way. There was a 300% damage crossbow, which is probably the most useful item possible since I can't breed for this challenge. There was also a harpoon gun and this random 440 stone hatchet. I want to know which one of you psychopaths is using a ascendant stone hatchet instead of a metal one. But after some more exploration, I finally found the artifact of the Devourer, while an oversized dire convict devoured me with his eyes. But all things considered, I'd say that went pretty well. But over back at my humble abode, I now had 4 out of the 6 artifacts needed to fight Harambe's grandfather, Gigantopithecus, and the spider lady. But for now, I wanted to take a break from the artifact grind. So after watching Attack on Titan live from my front porch, I decided it was time to tame a carcair, aka a dimorphodon. Dododex says that carcairs have 6k base torpor with 300 increase per level. They actually have more than that when they're wild though. But since they are passive tames, and I use that term very loosely, I can't see how many tranq arrows it's gonna take. But for a comparison, a giga would take 250 to the head, so yeah, good times. So with this 300% crossbow, it actually should take less than 100 headshots, which isn't too bad. However, I do have to somehow trap the dimorphodon. I don't even want to think about how I'm gonna do that, but I made some extra tranq arrows to be safe, farmed some more metal because we're all out, and became a beaver to harvest some wood and cook said metal. And with all of that sorted out, I loaded up a bunch of random materials into Hogtua for whatever kind of concoction of a trap I'm about to build. And on day 52, I headed to the tropical South Island. And I could have sworn that dimorphodon spawned here, but I couldn't find any. And to be honest, I was doing anything possible to avoid the swamp. But after testing the combat skills of this Pelagornis, he had approximately 1,000 health. I flapped my wings over to the redwoods. Dimorphodons may be carcairs, but I still wasn't sure what gigas were, so I need to find that out as well. But I know for a fact that dimorphs are supposed to be in the redwoods, and they are, but I didn't find a single one over level 100. So after belly flopping this sea turtle, he is kind of insane by the way, he has like 5k health minimum, so I might tame one later. I began heading towards the dreaded swamp, but then over by the bridge, I found the scum of the earth, microscopic raptors. Luckily they didn't dismount me, but these dudes were doing over 100 damage per hit, and they weren't even that high of a level. I was intrigued. I did something stupid. I pulled out the bowler. But what I didn't account for, however, was there being more than one. Good times. I don't know how I would even trap something that small for 100 tranq shots, but I don't know about the dimorph either, so I guess it's about the same. If I manage to find a bigger one though, you know, just a little extra weight on him, it could be possible. Anyways, when I made it back, Hulk Hogan's wife was being micro-assaulted, so I whistled her out of there, and I didn't even notice how dangerously low Tiny Terry's stamina was. This man collapsed under the weight of a man named Calorie Surplus. Oh no! What do I do? I just tried to dismount when I got near a rock, and somehow it worked. Okay, what just happened? But Tiny Terry went down, like all the way down, and Hawk Tua went with him. And the only option for me at this point was to follow them and go into the water. Please, please, please. Whew. Somehow, I'm alive, and after being rescued by a hawk-like lifeguard, we rose back to the top. Tiny Terry's name tag can't even keep up with his 360 no-scopes. But back over next to the micro-degenerates, I was 95% sure that you can't pick up these guys. I was correct. But I did want to tame the fella because they broke my armor so quick that it was kind of insane. And for some reason, they just kept running in circles instead of flying like they usually do. I'll come back later. Anyways, I spent the rest of day 53 searching for dimorphocarchaires, all of which were low level or undersized. But at the end of the day, at the end of the swamp, I found it. A level 140 borderline obese dimorphocarchaire. So I spent the better part of the night grinding some resources for my mobile trap house. And on day 54, I was ready. But unfortunately, so was he. This dimorphodon was so gargantuan that he can't even fit through a dino gate. All of that work was literally for nothing. But I wasn't giving up that easy, and I didn't have time to put him on some Weight Watchers. So I started shooting, and one thing led to another, and dimorphodons will all team up to attack you if you attack one of them. And long story short, a tiny little 0.4 times the size dimorphodon was inside my trap. I wasn't exactly comfortable going for this because he was so small he could fly through anything, so I set up a second layer of protection just in case he flew out, and I thought this would work, but it didn't go as planned. In order to get my body back, I would have to enter a room with a serial killer whose two victims were both me. But with the two different rooms set up, I mean, I don't really see a better way of going about this. But after a Dilo who had well over 10,000 health took me over 5 minutes to kill. Jeez, bro, what are they feeding this man? I was about to put my RG inside the building, so no random degenerates would do that again. But that's when I accidentally upset the planet of the dimorphs. Why are there so many? And after somehow losing aggro, well, there was a Dilo who hit the dimorph who destroyed my sleeping bag and then proceeded to pulverize my life. Why did he have to hit the sleeping bag though? The only flyer that I have left at base was once again Mount Terra. I'm not even gonna question why Robert is inside a wall. Anyways, when I made it back, a tiny degenerate was munching on Hawk Tua's calf muscles. So I slayed him. But while I was out of render distance, the dimorph somehow got out of the trap. Aw, come on. I really wanted one of these dimorph guys, and I wasn't ready to give up just yet. I feel like I could free range tame this big one using the trap as cover, but the second I begin reading a bedtime story, his entire friend group is gonna rain death upon my beer gut, and got him exactly where I wanted him. Wait, no, come back. But then this happened. But now we have another one inside our trap house. And he was only level 95, but you know, I'll take what I can get. So I placed another sleeping bag outside and performed a hit and run. I didn't really know what I was supposed to do here. I was kind of hoping he would just keep flying into the wall, but that never happened. And when I came back for round 2, oh no, they got Hawk Tua! The dimorphs were swarming outside. And if I could just kill everything except for the fat one, I'd probably be alright to tame him. But I don't know how I would even do that considering they'll two-shot my RG. So I decided to head home and figure it out. But then, my game crashed. Twice. So on day 56, I was about to take a break from repeatedly experiencing a brutal death to carchaire dimorphs, and I grabbed my scuba and my Bassie to find the underwater artifact. But as I left my base, I found this. Level 145. I gotta tame him. So I dropped off my hawk to not take any unnecessary risks, walked down the stairs, and tied up a birdman. As soon as the bullet broke, I just ran away for 10 seconds until I was able to bullet again. And I don't know why I didn't try this before. I kind of assumed that he would be faster than me, but it was actually working. Well, it was working. But after one more round of shots, I found myself in the jungle, and Hulk Hogan himself was upset about the brainwashing of his wife. Dude, not now, bro. So I quickly kited him to the beach, and I used M&M to distract him so I could get back to work. But despite me being gone for maybe 10 seconds max, the Dimorph had vanished off the face of the earth. Where did he go? How can you hide when you're that fat? Hulk Hogan had foiled my plans, and after that many shots, I feel like I had to have been close. But I spent all night searching, and I couldn't find the dude. At this point, I was in denial. I was so close, yet so far away. Bro, leave me alone. Oh my. But after a long search, I actually found him. Wait. Oh, for some reason the dude shrunk back to normal size, but I actually did knock him out. He had 60,000 torpor, by the way, and after a few bites of raw elephant, he was finally nerfed by 90%, just like a car care. But he was still insane, and I named him Death Aura because he radiates death. And the green color scheme combined with the animated series costume, I think this Dimorph skin might be my favorite one yet. And the best part about having a shoulder pet car carrier named Death Aura is that I can just throw the dude at my enemies and whistle for them to die. And after that, well, my game crashed. But when I loaded back in, the dude was a full-grown, morbidly obese man. He was doing 300 damage with the nerfed turtle shell damage reduction. When he hit this humongous Dilo, well, it was a whole different story. This was unleveled, but I heard that Dimorphs won't get teleported into a boss arena due to them being flyers. But apparently, if you have one on your shoulder, that one can go in. My source is Reddit, by the way, so I mean, it might not even work. But theoretically, I can bring one of these guys into the arena. Anyways, after doing some more base stuff, day 58 began, and it was time for a swim. The artifact of the Brute is located somewhere in the Mariana Trench, which runs along the eastern side of the map. But down here, things are absolutely terrifying. And with the creature's size scaling, I actually feel like I'm playing a horror game. There was a massive Dunkleo at the start, and a few little angler lights, a minifigure of a Plessy, but I wasn't even at the trench yet. It went down, and down some more, and at this point, I'm seeing nothing but water in all directions. And it went down even more, and once I thought I hit the bottom, there was another ledge. This is insane. But eventually, I actually made it to the bottom, where I was so deep that Whalebert was taking damage due to high pressure. And I don't know why I'm like this, but I was sitting here wandering around, not being able to see for like 10 minutes, until I remembered that the volumetric fog command that I used to remove all the fog reset when my game crashed earlier. And when I re-entered it, well, yeah, it's a whole lot less terrifying now. If you don't use it, by the way, it's r.volumetric fog space 0. It's basically just like changing your gamma. Like, you can even do it on official servers, but yeah, it makes the game look a lot better. Anyways, the artifact of the Brute was secured. I was kind of swimming right below it this entire time. Anyways, I checked out this cave thing nearby because I wanted to find some Tusos, but I didn't find much. And back at my humble abode, on day 59, I had 5 out of the 6 artifacts. And the only one remaining at this point was the artifact of the Massive, which is located in the hard lava cave. I also need to tame like 17 more creatures for the boss fight, and 100 tranq arrows is not going to get the job done. So I queued up some stone projectiles, headed to the mines to farm some flint, slaughtered a babysitter on my lunch break, stole his job, and sat the baby myself. And after my second shift at the Stone Age Arrow Factory, I found this level 145 single mother with 3 children, all walking in a single file line. Aw, how cute. So I found 3 orphan parasaurs again. It's such a shame that their parents don't take care of them. But they were all level 145. And I was able to craft a few hundred stone arrows, contaminate the products, utilize El Chapo's indentured services to farm some raw sleep potions, and as day 59 came to an end, I cooked up the world's finest narcotics. And while that was cooking up, baby Spike Wazowski, well, he was alright, but the stats were nothing special. But parentless Perry, Orphan Perry III, and Perry But Alone all had 5k health and almost 300 melee. I haven't used Orphan Perry Jr. very much in the run because Raptors are way faster, so it's just easier in the caves. But after putting in some levels to 450 melee, he was doing about 200 damage per hit, and that's not bad at all. Oh, I didn't even mean to adopt you. So while my not-so-biological triplets were busy becoming a trio of full-grown men, I dipped 100 more arrows into pure melatonin and grabbed my fursuit. Armor. The tundra was home to two creatures that I wanted to test, the Tyranus and the mammoth. But once I arrived, I didn't even need the tranks, because this level 100 had two mammoth babies. These level 100 babies won't be getting used for the boss fight, but seeing this 4k health on a level 100, well, it allows me to get a pretty good idea of their stats. Spoiler, I think they're pretty solid. So on day 61, I had my recording paused. But what happened was, I incapacitated this gentlewoman, sorry ma'am. And while her two babies were cowering in fear, I had lined up an all-you-can-eat berry buffet directly inside her trunk. But this was gonna take a while. So in the meantime, I tested the combat skills of Rudolph, and he has somewhere around 4k health, which is pretty good, but it's not amazing. But I was actually looking for a Yudi. And after I spent the entire day 61 and didn't find a single one in the entire tundra, I found this guy. I assumed that a giga would be an easy kill, because the chances of a giga still being a giga are astronomically low. But despite this man being of the 25th level, he hits like a giga. And since he also gives the Nashed effect, I guess there's a possibility that gigas randomly landed back on gigas, or maybe he just gives that because his base is a giga, I don't know. Anyways, there's no point in taming one because they're too large for boss fights anyway. And in terms of Udis, we have no Udis. I came to the conclusion that they must be spawning and instantly attacking mammoths like they always do, but this time they're losing every time. And I actually haven't seen a single one this time around, but I did witness one die in less than 5 seconds earlier to a mammoth, so I'm just gonna assume they're terrible. Anyways, the lack of Udis wasted the entire day 62. And on day 63, the mammoth was only 75% tame. The reason this man is taking over an hour is because herbivores don't have a prime meat equivalent. And I don't know if you think I'm Gordon Ramsay or something, but I'm not making kibble. But anyways, I still had like 20 minutes before this man was finished brainwashing, so I was gonna tame a Carno on the ledge. But the dude can magically phase through rocks. What? And when I repositioned, well, this happened. Oh no! I didn't have any more parachutes. And just like that, my kneecaps got deleted. The flight back across the map took like 5 minutes, and once I arrived to get my stuff back, what just happened? So that's how I spent my day 63. But at the start of day 64, the mammoth was tame. He had 9,000 health and 400 melee. And this might be the best stat line that I've seen yet. So I named him Woolsmith, and I will be using the most diverse army of all time, but I'm thinking I might get a few more of these for the mate boost and their little weakened roar effect. So after eviscerating the weakest car carrier to ever live, I returned to my humble abode, where I found this. No way. The one saddle BP that I had was for this Mamothian. I didn't even think I was gonna use it when I found it, but I needed more hide and fiber though. So after summoning the squadron, I'm not even going to acknowledge that, I spent the rest of day 64 skinning the locals for a saddle. And on day 65, after a quick fiber run, Woolsmith will no longer be naked. Mammoths may be slow, and they may be a bit clunky, but his stats were insane, and when it came to damage, well, it more than made up for it. He did over 200 damage per hit, unleveled, and when I did the roar thing, when I weakened him, it went up to almost 400. I definitely wanted to tame a second one for the mate boost, and maybe even a couple more. We're gonna be having another arranged marriage. But I also needed to tame a total of 20 creatures for the boss fight, since I can't breathe, and maybe even test out some new stuff. So I began my preparations by purchasing bolas in bulk from Costco, grabbed my hypothermia land outfit, picked up a pitfall trap that was the size of my house and stored it in my pocket somehow. And I was gonna take the RG gateway trap too, but it's damaged thanks to this cretin here. But with everything prepared, it was now time for an epic taming montage. Well, the mammoth grew up. Anyways. Oh my. Oh my. Well, that took a while. I'm really glad that I realized breeding didn't work early enough to have time for that. But anyways, it was now day 80, and I summoned my variety pack of Mammotheans. And we also have this dude. Mammoths are pretty solid in the randomizer. I don't know what their stats are from, but they all have around 9 to 10k health, so I named them Wooly, Elong Tusk, Dumbo, and Dave. And these guys combined with Woolsmith and Manny from earlier, well, that's gonna make up about 1/3 of my boss army. Mainly because I actually have good saddles for them. But on the other side of things, I was gonna mass tame Dilos because this man is healthy. But there was one problem, and it was kind of a big deal. The Dilos can spit, obviously, but they won't do a normal attack. And with this high of base health, I realized that according to Dododex, the only logical creature that they could be is an Oasosaur. And Oasosaurs are pacifist. The dudes don't attack. Also, the animated skin being a coelacanth is peak comedy and kind of disturbing. But that's actually a problem with the stat randomizer mod, not the skin pack. Normally, the Dilo skin works perfectly fine, so don't worry about that. But even though they can't hit, I'm probably going to take 2 of them into the boss fight anyway, because why not? And with all of that, the army was set. Mammoths, Dilos, parasaurs, raptors, and the one and only Dimorph that I really hope is allowed into the arena. Bowser here was gonna go, but the mammoths are way better, so now he's just wasting space. Oh, and I almost forgot about the power couple, Bob Jr. and Bobette, which are kind of backwards, by the way. Bob Jr. is a female. Their stats are kind of insane, but dodos have horrible attack range and horrible delay between their attacks. So I decided to give them a tryout against Mr. Carnold. The damage was insane, but Carnold's knockback was definitely a problem, and the bosses are gonna do that too. Honestly, they probably won't even get those hits off, but with 400 damage and 20k health as a baseline, I'll allow it. Anyways, with that sorted out, it was time to get that last artifact. The artifact of the Massive. So I took a trip to Club Penguin's home server, stole the sail off of a Spino and his entire spine, extracted some organic polymer from an oversized father in front of his family of 37, used the father penguin sacrifice to make myself some clothing, never seen an overweight tree before, and I decided to put the Helena skin on the ghillie outfit so I don't have to stare at a tree's beer gut. And with everything set in place, we took flight. Destination: Lava Island. The lava cave really isn't that bad compared to a lot of the stuff on the island, but I've been a bit scared of this place. And as I entered and started ARK survival descending into the cave, I realized even though I did bring grapples, I might get dismounted and I don't know where it'll happen. So I left, slayed Eminem's nephew, and made some parachutes. The cave was pretty fire, literally. But somehow there was a perfectly intact water pole here next to someone's ribcage. Anyways, as I started flying down, my suspicions were proven correct. No flyers were allowed. So I whistled Hawktua, put her in a Pokeball, and summoned a rap god. That pillar in the distance looks like it's not gonna hold up much longer, which is kind of concerning. But anyways, I de-snaked the premises, and I found a dung connoisseur, which has significantly more health than any dung beetle should have. Dang, dude. Reese's Feces has been hitting the gym. This cave was absolutely massive. And no pun intended, but it also contains the artifact of the Massive. I needed to get all the way down there. And just like before, I was able to outrun any 8-legged pursuers in my way. But eventually, I came across a split. And there's actually 2 artifacts in this cave. I only needed the one, but I don't know which way it is. The next section had this giant central lake, but there wasn't much here, so I headed up a ramp, through the ominous giant arachnid tunnel of doom, over this bridge, and past a squadron of cretins. Until finally, I made it to the back of this cavern, where there was a dead end, and a whole lot of legs. Why are there so many? Please fall down. They're actually gonna kill me. Somehow, I got away, but this can't just be the end of the cave. So I decided to drop down these cliff ledge things. And, well, it is indeed a dead end. The artifact was clearly not here, so I backtracked through the caverns, and I found a pathway. One of the heathens, knocked me down, and luckily there was some water down there, but there were spiders everywhere trying to webify my legs. And it was getting to the point where I was really scared that Eminem wasn't gonna make it. Leave me alone! And then this happen? I've been exposed. Somehow, I'm still alive. But going down these ramps with below half health and no armor, well, things were not looking great. And to make matters worse, I reached the very bottom of the volcano and there's nothing here. So I reluctantly started heading back up. And, well, I thought this would be an easy backtrack. I was wrong. Well, you're probably wondering how I ended up here. And I regret to inform you that Eminem is in the lava down there. And I'm quite literally hanging on by a thread. Why am I like this? I wish I would have brought some more tames, but the only one I have left is Will Smith here. Hey, how's it going, bro? Will Smith was way too slow to actually use his mount. So I just continued on foot, summoning my Mammothbian bodyguard every time I encountered a miscreant. His damage was kind of insane, and it was definitely making me more confident in this boss fight. But I still needed that artifact. And it looks like when I grappled up, I actually skipped a lot of it, and I'm all the way on the other path. We must be getting close. And on day 84, after going down a staircase into a volcano, I came across the central ruin area. This definitely looked like an artifact chamber, but Will Smith is slower than my grandma's houseplant, so we'll find out in roughly 3 to 5 business days. But after slaying the serpent from the Chamber of Secrets and disposing of his corpse, the artifact of the massive awaits. And just like that, I had all 6 artifacts for the boss fight. I just had to get out of here. The staircase actually goes even further down, but I just want to go up. So I continued along, summoning Will Smith to assist me with any spider-like situations that arose along the way. And after one final boss, I made it out. Well, almost. I have to get up there, and I only have 1 grapple left. So I did something a bit unorthodox. I summoned a Birdman, launched a grapple into his... I launched it, and I started spamming more whistles than Flowrider. And it actually worked. I've solo tamed a Quetzal like that, by the way. Anyways, I genuinely can't believe I'm alive right now. I literally made it out of the cave naked and afraid, and on foot, because I forgot to bring a backup raptor. But back over at my cave-side penthouse, I had everything that I needed to summon Mama Brood and Papa Pithecus. Well, almost. I still needed the tributes. Wait, you can track the tributes? Why did I never know this? Anyways, these things can take an insanely long time to grind, which is why I wanted to give myself at least 10 days. So on day 85, I leveled the health of my boss army so they could start healing up while I was gone. I settled up the surf and the turf, and I just realized that even the game is calling Baba Fatty. But upon using this tracker to evaluate everything that I had, well, I still need almost everything. So I set out to fulfill my shopping list of body parts. It was now day 95, and I need another Argie's fingernail. I had most of the tributes, and some of them I had too many, but I only had 15 Spinosaurs and Bassy Blubber, which is only enough for beta and not for alpha. Also, I don't have any Megalania toxin yet, and for the Thylacauz, well, I looked at almost every single tree in the entire Redwoods, and I even found the legendary Dreadmare, but I didn't find a single Thyla. I even decided to check again, but yeah, they're not spawning for some reason, and I might have to end up spawning the claws if I can't find one. But anyways, that wasn't why I was in the Redwoods, because there were 2 things left to do before I could enter the boss fight. Leveling up my army, and of course, the Megalania toxin. And Megalanias can easily be farmed in this redwood cave behind the waterfall. You just have to head to the back and look for them on the ceiling. Well, that's normally what you would do. But these dudes weren't spawning either. And to make matters worse, when I tracked the tributes again, I don't even know how this happened. Maybe I'm stupid or something, but I was still missing the artifact of the pack. And I don't even need this artifact of the cunning that I found in the ice palace. But the pack cave is right next to my base in the south jungle. And luckily, we don't have to do too much to get to it, because this cave has a bit of a shortcut. Basically, you just run through the tunnel, go to the bottom of the blue crystal area until you hit this opening. And now, normally, you would have to go all the way through the path and deal with a bunch of degenerates. But if we cryo Eminem's widowed wife here, we can grapple up to these ruins, which skips a huge portion of the cave. Wait, not you. And here, after you take a right, make sure to jump over this little gap so you don't fall to your demise. And when you make it over to the ruins here, you simply grapple to the top. We're experiencing some technical difficulties. I'm pretty sure I remember doing this on Evolved. Maybe not. Maybe there was some other exploit. I don't know. But either way, this cave has a jumping puzzle. And that's just a sophisticated way of saying parkour. Luckily, the parkour on this game isn't really that hard, but the course is super long and there is lava below. I probably should have made a sleeping bag for this, but you know what? Let's do it. Ladies and gentlemen, we made it. And for some reason, the artifact did not. So I fixed it, and I parachuted down because I don't need your water, and headed out. But I'm not going that way. It was now day 97, and I desperately needed some toxin from a Megalania. So I headed back to the Redwood Cave, and this time, I was prepared. The Megalovanias tend to spawn inside the ceiling. Look, there's one right there. And these rare flowers will fish them out. Look, there's another one. Another one. This cave is actually kind of broken for Megalanias. And this may sound like a lot, but I only saw about 5 total, meaning it still wouldn't be enough. So I did something a bit unconventional. I decided to tame a breeding pair, starting with the missus. She gave me rabies. The Megalovania duo was down, and these are the only tames in the entire game that if you breed a baby, the baby spawns in with an apex tribute in its inventory, the Megalania toxin. But these two unconscious Megalanias also dropped some toxin, and after I cleared out the rest of their toxic extended families, I realized that if I just waited for them to wake up, which refills their toxic traits, I can slay them to again harness the power of their toxic relationship. It was exactly enough. And it was now day 98. And with 16 Megalania toxin and someone's entire pelvis in my possession, everything was ready. By the way, I haven't played Ascended in a while. Why do I have a pelvis and like someone's jaw and someone's spine in my smithy? Like, I know I keep making jokes that I'm secretly Dexter or something, but like, actually, what is that stuff for? Anyways, I wanted to make sure that the tames had enough melee to take down the bosses. So I lined up parentless Perry, but alone, and Orphan Perry Jr. to all make fertilized eggs with a parasaur man named Paramount Plus. Orphan Perry III was trying to hide over here, but she's joining in too. Other side of the gate, my Mamothians were also going to contribute to our slightly unethical leveling practices. My bad. So I gathered everyone that I have drafted into the prehistoric military, and it was time to level up their combat skills by practicing on their children. And just like that, it was now day 100. I was running out of time, but with everything prepared for the fight, I spent the rest of the day making some more cryopods, Hey, how's it going, bros? And getting everyone rounded up at the obelisk. This is actually the most variety I've ever had among boss fighting co-workers. And I really don't know if the dimorph is going to be allowed in the fight, but he's on my shoulder, and according to Reddit, it's going to work. But to be honest, from my many years of experience, Reddit is it's a pretty credible source, actually. So 100 days, 6 artifacts, 15 of Squidward's tentacles, and a bunch of random limbs from my neighbors. It was time for one last fight. And just like that, parentless Perry's non-existent parents were now childless. Wow, that sentence didn't even make sense. I honestly think we would have easily beat that if the Megapithecus wasn't smaller than that dude's eyebrows that runs the car wash on Breaking Bad.
What? I said you and your eyebrows.
And by the way, I actually tried this fight twice because the first time the Megapithecus was so morbidly a beast. He was 8 times the size and literally spawned on top of the arena. But if you enjoyed the video, all I ask is please leave a like and comment your favorite dinosaur for the algorithm. And if you were wondering, the animated skins that I was using on all the dinosaurs throughout the entire video are from the ARK Animated Series skin pack. They look super cool, and you can find them in the description below if you want to use them in your playthrough. And don't forget to check out the ARK Animated Series on Paramount Plus. The trailer for that is also in the description below. And if you want to see me survive 100 days in a horror-themed ARK apocalypse, click right here.